All right, now that we know the three forms that our lines can be in, today we're going to focus on writing the equations of these lines, probably given one form and then switching it into another. And more than likely, you're going to probably switch it to either slope-intercept or standard form. So just a reminder, these are kind of the stipulations for each of the forms. With point-slope form, it's written in this form, y minus y1 equals slope times x minus x1, where the point is going to be your x1, y1, and your slope is just going to be the m in the equation. All right, for slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b, the slope is the m still, and the intercept, this is the y-intercept, and we call that b in our equation. All right, lastly, standard form. This one's the most tricky. It's in the form ax plus by equals c, where your a, b, and c are all going to be integers. Your x and y have to be on the same side. And then your x term, the term that comes first, is going to be positive. All right, so with that said, let's see if we can take one form and change it into another form. Let's go. All right, starting off with a super easy one here. It says, write an equation of a line in slope-intercept form with a slope of negative 9/7 and a y-intercept of 4, okay? So just a reminder, we have kind of four variables or four letters that you see in our formula, y, m, x, and b. The y and the x have to stay what they are because throughout our line they're changing, but the m and the b, those are gonna be our m slope and b y-intercept. So essentially what I can do is just replace my m with my slope here, which is negative 9/7, and the b, the y-intercept, with 4, just like the question's asking. So I'm going to say y equals, instead of m, negative 9/7 x plus my b, which is 4. Okay? That is all you have to do on that one. Let's try a harder one. All right, this next one says, write an equation in slope-intercept form with a slope of 2 and that passes through the points negative 6, 10. So if I look at what I have here, I have a slope and a point. Well, that's going to be point-slope form. So let me write out point-slope form for you again. That's y minus y1 equals the slope times x minus x1. But you're like, Mr. Martin, that's not going to work out, right? Because we have point-slope, but it's asking us to write it in slope-intercept. So what we're going to have to do is start in point-slope and eventually switch to slope-intercept form, okay? Let's try it. So I'm going to put in my point. My point here is negative 6, 10. Remember, that's my x1, y1, so I can replace those parts. Let's see, the x1 is a negative 6, so if I have x minus a negative 6, that's just actually going to be x plus 6 right there, kind of in that part. And then same thing for the y minus y1, that's going to be y minus, my y1 is 10, y minus positive 10 is still y minus 10. Okay, but the part that I'm missing is the slope, and I know from my my problem here, it says that the slope is 2. So I can put a 2 where the slope goes. All right. That is in point slope. Now I need to switch this to look like slope-intercept. And if you remember, slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b. So what is solved for here? What's the variable that's isolated? And that's going to be the y. All right, so in my problem, I'm trying to get this y isolated. And to do that, I need to do a couple things. First off, I probably should distribute on this other side, and then eventually I want to move this 10 over. So if I do that here, it's going to be y minus 10 still equals 2x plus 12 if I distribute the 2 in. And then if I add 10 to both sides, that cancels. Y equals 2x plus 22. Okay, let's try one where we go to standard form. This says write an equation in standard form given, and then we have two different problems. We'll start here with letter A. It says given y equals negative 3x plus 5. All right, so this is actually just in slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b. But we want to change this to be standard form. And remember, standard form, we have to have all our a, b, and c's be integers. In other words, we can't have fractions, so looking good here, there's no fractions. Also, our x and y have to be on the same side. Currently, they are not. We have a y on one side and the x on the other side of our equal sign. So I'm going to move this x term over by adding 3x to both sides. Okay, that's going to cancel on the right side, giving me, and then typically you usually want to write your x term first. That's just tradition. So we're going to say 3x and then positive y or plus y equals, that cancels, so equals a 5. Okay, the other thing with this is that you also want to make sure at the end of your problem that your x term is positive, which it is. So I think all three things in our standard form checklist are checked off. So right, the x is positive, x and y on the same side, and no fractions. This one's going to be harder though. Letter B says y minus 4 equals, and we have negative 1/3 times the quantity x minus 6. So you could attack this a few different ways. Currently this is in point slope form, and so you could switch it to be standard form, or switch it to be slope intercept and then switch that to be standard. But let's see if we can maybe attack this a different way. What if we just start by trying to get rid of all the fractions? And the fraction I see here is -1/3. So to do that, we can multiply by 3, all right? Multiply by the number that's in the denominator. So if I take the whole problem and multiply it by 3, I have to take 3 times y to give me 3y. 3 times -4 is -12, right? The reason we chose the 3 is because it's going to kind of cancel, if you will, that. The -1/3. 3 times -1/3 is just a -1, okay? And then 3 times this part, we actually don't do that because currently this is just one term, right? It's all being multiplied together. -1/3 times x minus 6 is one term. We can only multiply into each term inside of those parentheses. All right, so anyway, I'm going to leave this as x minus 6. Then I can simplify this a little bit. Let me do one more step here real quick for you. 3y minus 12 equals -x plus 6. Just distribute the -1 through. Okay, so I have no fractions now. Now I need to get the x and y on the same side of my equal sign. And as I do that, I'm going to move everything else that's not an x or y to the other side. Okay, so the x needs to come over here by adding it. Again, I want to put that out in front. The x usually comes first. And if I look at what's left on this side, I have an x, a y, and then this -12. So the -12 needs to move over, because it's not an x or a y, to the other side. Okay, so that's going to cancel. That's going to cancel. If I write what I have left, I have x plus 3y equals, cancel, cancel, 18. Okay? Now, is this in standard form? Well, let's check. We don't have fractions. Our x and y are on the same side. And is the x term positive? Yes. So this is in standard form. All right, we'll wrap it up with one more. This last problem can be a little bit tricky because it says write an equation in standard form given that it passes through the 2 points 3, -1, and 2, -3. So we're given 2 points, all right? And if you remember our 3 different types of equations for our lines, we have point slope, slope intercept, and standard. None of those have 2 points in them. The closest thing that we have is maybe point slope, where there is 1 point. And so because of that, if I can maybe take these 2 points and get a slope, then I could put it into point slope using the point and the slope that I have. So somehow I need to get a slope out of these. And luckily for us, we have what's called the slope formula, which is the slope that equals, you know it? y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So if I take these, if you need to, you can still write them out, xy, terrible y, xy. And then I'm going to call my first point, I'm going to give those 1s, x1, y1. My second point is going to get the 2s, because it's the second one. And I can just throw those into the equation. I'll do that real quick for you. All right, so then you end up with a slope that equals 2, okay? So why is that helpful? Because now I have a slope that is 2, and I also can pick one of these 2 points. It does not matter. I'll just use the first one since it's first, and I'll say 3, -1. And because I have a point and a slope, I can put this into point slope form, which hopefully you remember is y minus y1 equals the slope times x minus x1. Okay, and I can take all these things right here and kind of put it into that formula. So remember, this is my x1, y1. So I'll start by using the y1. That comes first in my formula. I'll say y minus that y1 is a -1. Well, y minus the -1 is y plus 1. The slope I know is 2 from right here. And then lastly, the x1, I'll say x minus 3. Okay, so last time what we did is we got rid of our fractions first, and by multiplying it by that 3, I think, if you remember in the last problem. This one I'm going to do it the other way, where I'm going to start by distributing this 2 in, eventually moving this 1 over, and then hopefully getting the x to the other side. Remember, we need our x and y on the same side because this is standard form. So let's do that. Then we'll say this is y plus 1 equals 2x minus 6, distributing the 2 in. Subtract 1 to both sides. So now y equals 2x minus 7. And then we need to move the x term to the other side, like this. Remember, typically we write our x term first. So I'm going to say -2x. This is a positive y right here. So plus y equals a -7. So now I have my x and y on the same side. There's no fraction in this problem, but there is that last stipulation which says that the x term needs to be positive. If that's the case, what you can do is essentially divide everything by a -1, okay? I'll show you kind of a shortcut for this afterwards, but remember, if you do something to one side, you have to do it to the other side, so I'm going to do it to all the parts here. And this is going to give me 2x minus y equals a positive 7. Now that is in standard form. A trick with this is if you end up with a negative on your x term, just switch all your signs in the problem. That will turn it to how it's supposed to be to get you into standard form. All right, hopefully this helped. Hopefully you got some notes written down. We'll see you next time.